So obviously, people, when we look back at the game against Nottingham Forest, Arsenal 2, Nottingham Forest 1 in our first Premier League game of the season, there's a couple of interesting things we can go over, people. The first would be the goal. If you remember, initially Martinelli did start kind of out here. He kept the move alive. He then ran over to the left-hand side, and some might think he overdone it. Lovely bit of trickery from him to get past two Forest players. Terrible defending by Nottingham Forest. I'm sure Cooper won't be happy with it, because if you go and watch the replay, it's great movement by Eddie and Nketiah. I actually think Kai Havertz and Partey on the far right hand side. In fact, I'm not with the opponents. Images. I'm not doing it justice enough, because I think there was a lot of space. You know, Martinelli had the option to square it to Odegaard. He could have played it across for Kai Havertz, who weren't in the best of goal scoring opportunities. So was Partey. And Eddie Nketiah is unmarked, really. It's terrible defending to clear the lines from Nottingham Forest, but it's great from an Arsenal perspective. Eddie Nketiah is in a yard of space. Martinelli with a lovely little bit of trickery. Whether he meant to find Eddie Nketiah or overran it, who knows? But I'm going to be shameless and say he meant to. Assisted a season contender already. As you know, by then, you can say what you want about Eddie Nketiah. It's a scary sight, people. He's put it in the back of the net. There was a slight deflection, but strikers finish. Who really cares, essentially? Again, Nottingham Forest didn't really clear their lines well enough from a set piece as well. If you remember, Morgan Gibbs-White actually has won the ball after a move broke down from us. He's tried to dribble into no man's land, absolutely no man's land. William Saliba has got out there to him, disarmed him for the ball. If you remember correctly, Partey's gone to support Saliba. He's given it back to Saliba. By then, Partey's made a run inside, and Saka off this right-hand side has made a run infield. Saliba's giving him the ball. We all know what Sakadinho does in it. Black Iron Robin settings. Matt Turner, no chance. Welcome back to the Emirates, mate. So they were the goals we scored. The goal we conceded, I was not happy with. Now you're seeing multiple footballs, and you're seeing some of the same names on the graphic in front of me. Obviously, I'm going to make it make sense. Now, again, transitions has been an issue of ours defensively last season, conceding cheap goals and managing games. We saw a goal conceded on the transition against Manchester City. We saw that against Barcelona. We saw that against Monaco, and also the chances Monaco created in that game. We saw it against Manchester United as well. I'm not criticizing Arsenal, but we need, and football's about transitions. That's what happens. But it was a cheap goal to concede, and I'm sure Mikel Arteta will not be happy with that, because it's come from our own corner. If you remember correctly, the corner is coming from Saka. Let's eliminate this football and leave that out. Long story short, Awoni, forgive me for my mispronunciation, he's a terrible centre forward to want to play against. You know, and I think it was a stroke of brilliance from Cooper to make the subs, really. In that, if you remember correctly, he's won the ball. Elanga's made the run off Bukayo Saka, and he's played it towards him. Simultaneously, my man has made this run forward. So again, eliminate that. Well, not eliminate him, but eliminate that football now. Again, long story short, players down the left-hand side. Declan Rice, Bukayo Saka, White, Trossard, they're all trying in vain to prevent the goal from going in. Elanga's ran down the left-hand side, if you lot can remember correctly. If I'm honest, Trossard and White, I'm not going to criticize you, because the whole team could do better, but maybe we could have been. The hardest thing to do as a defender is watch the ball and demand, people. And as you could tell, play, long story short, advance down the left-hand side. Ball's been played into the box. It's gone into the back of the net. Now, collectively, the whole team has to take responsibility. As I was saying, the most difficult thing you can do for a defender is to watch the ball and the man. So it's a bit of a difficult one, but the transition is what's going to stop us from going to the level we potentially can as a football club. I did think Partey, and you will see throughout the course of this video, Partey playing in that setup was quite interesting, people, because at times he's like a centre-half. Odegaard was playing a bit narrower as well. He's like a centre-half. Equally, at times you probably saw Benjamin White out there and Partey playing as a right back. Equally, you also saw him occupying these positions. And again, we saw fixated movement from multiple players. You will see more of what I'm talking about throughout the course of this video that you're watching. Smash the like button. I did love the interchanging movement as well, because you probably saw our setup like that. It was almost like three sub-teams. You would see Odegaard on occasion dropping deep. Saka was really the only fixated kind of player within our setup. Partey, as you know, between right back and centre mid, he was drifting in those areas. Benjamin White was also taking it in turns with him. And you did see interchanging movement. Sometimes Havertz would run to the far left and allow Martinelli to be inside. Equally, you saw Martinelli out wide. You also saw Rice making these galloping runs and kind of occupying positions off the ball like a striker, really. And obviously, Eddie was dropping deep. As I said, there was multiple movement from several players. Havertz would run in behind and Rice would drop deeper, or Martinelli would. That's a fixated thing of Mikel Arteta's system, and that's something you can't not love as a manager, that your players have the capacity to do that. And I do think it's exciting as a fan of the football club. Obviously, against certain teams that may or may not not work. So we'll have to look at it in a different light. But I do think we could have done better in the games. I'd say the most thing I'm disappointed with is the transition and actually not putting Nottingham Forest to the sword. I think we're good enough to score a lot more goals. I like the fact that we capitalised on them failing to clear their lines for 2 of the goals. But we're Arsenal Football Club. We've got some brilliant players. And yes, it's the first game of the season, but I think we had the capacity to put Matt Turner under a lot more pressure. I know Rice had a couple of opportunities, but for the second top goal scorers in the Prem, for a team that got 80 odd, I do think we could have effectively managed both boxes. You know, we could have scored more goals and we definitely didn't need to concede in that game. Let me know your thoughts and smash the like button.
Now, people, personally, I don't... People, Deluded, I'm back again. As you know, we got off to the Premier League opening day off to a great start. The main thing is 3 points. You know, again, I have to say it. I don't think you can, you know, a bit like when you look at preseason. When you win, you can't get too excited. When you lose, you can't get too down on yourselves. I don't think you can underestimate preseason, and I don't think you can overestimate it. And likewise, with the first game of the Premier League, bearing in mind there's 37 cup finals to go in the Premier League, you know, 38 games in total, and however many if you progress to the FA Cup, the League Cup, and the Champions League by God's grace, latter stages. Now, and you know, I think that people need to kind of calm down. We need to find some balance. I do think there's areas of concern. I do think there's many things we could have done better. I do think issues that plagued Arsenal last season are kind of plaguing us again, you know, again on the transition, or, you know, whether it's game management, defensive being switched on defensively for the whole game management, set pieces, transitions, dead ball scenarios, you know, being a bit more street smart. These are things that plagued us last season. These are things that harmed us, in my opinion, in pre-season against Manchester United, Barcelona, Monaco in the League Cup, the Community Shield against Manchester City, and so on and so forth. And obviously you saw for the goal Forest scored, that the transition. Now, let's be honest, we got the 3 points. That's the main thing. The 3 points is the main thing. I think we could have scored some more goals. I think we could have created more goals. I think we should have scored more goals. And I think we should have kept a clean sheet. But considering the fact that Mikel Arteta changed the system, the fact of our players, we're not going to be as sharp as we should be. We need to get 3 points. We did that. Again, it's too early to talk about who's contending for the title, but last season we did such. We saw Manchester City on Friday pick up 3 points. We've done the same. I did think it was an encouraging performance from the likes of Timber. Unfortunately, he's injured at the moment. I did think it was a big call for Mikel Arteta to not start Gabriel for whatever reason. Allegedly, it was tactical, and deploy Partey as a right back, or, you know, a bit of a hybrid centre midfielder / right back, an inverted fullback of sorts. And I think in games against Nottingham Forest, you can get away with that, in my opinion. And I think it worked well. I think if you read social media, Havertz is getting too much stick. The same for Eddie Nketiah, and I believe Partey in the second half. Again, football's subjective. Everyone's allowed an opinion, but you just have to wonder where they come out with this. You know, I think you saw players rotating. You know, there was times Rice was basically occupying striking positions. Eddie Nketiah worked his socks off and deserved his goal. I think Havertz showed some encouraging signs, but you do want more. Thought it took about 20 minutes for Martinelli to wake up, but when he did, he was on fire. I think Odegaard was put on the clinic as well. Of course, we could play a lot better. You know, really and truly, I don't think it was a 10 out of 10 Premier League performance from us. I don't think there was many players that played 10 out of 10. I think Saka was great. I think Eddie worked very hard. I think Odegaard had some great touches. I think Partey and Benjamin White worked well. I think Rice had a good, encouraging Premier League home debut at Arsenal, at the Emirates, better yet. So there's many things we could work on, really and truly. I think we should have scored more. As I said, we could have put them to the sword and killed the game, really, in the first half. I think a bit like Manchester City in the League Cup final. Well, the Super Cup, as I refer to it, last week. I do think, the last 15 minutes, that's what's going to cost us. And again, I'm not expecting us to finished last season, go off for a few weeks in preseason and come back and we're just better at everything. It doesn't work like that. We're only going to see Arteta's team really take shape in everything they've worked on, good and bad, in preseason, probably 10 to 12 games into the season. But I do think it was an encouraging thing. I did think evidently we had to be a bit patient. I don't think, we was going to come out there and kill Nottingham Forest from the jump. We all know they came here, probably respected us a bit too much, and maybe on reflection, Cooper would have probably gambled a bit more in the second half. And had, Brennan Johnson have scored early on, whether he's onside or not, that might have given us something, quote unquote, to think about. But other than that, I think we did our job. They were rigid. They had basically a back three, back five. They had 11 men in their own half for the majority of the game. They had 10 men behind the ball. They were compact. They were narrow. They were trying to knock it into the channels and win the first and second balls and take it from there. And as I said, I'm happy that we took advantage of them failing to clear their lines. Obviously, for the first goal, as you probably would have seen or see at some point throughout this video, Martinelli's kept the corner alive, and a great bit of trickery has found Eddie Nketiah. He's put it in the back of the net. William Saliba and Thomas Partey did well to intercept Morgan Gibbs-White when he's dilly-dallying in possession. Obviously, they fed Saka, and although Saliba gets the assist, and I think he deserved it because he switched on and won the ball back, basically as a right winger from that corner. Saka's basically given him assist because it's a wonderful strike from Saka. So, as I said, the main thing is 3 points. The only thing is 3 points. Sometimes you win when you don't necessarily, not isolated to this game, but sometimes you win when you don't necessarily deserve to. Sometimes you lose when you've played brilliantly. So the main thing is 3 points. I'd rather get the 3 points first and then dissect the performance. Clearly against better teams, respectfully to Forest, definitely against Crystal Palace in our next game, and probably Fulham, which I hope we get 9 points in August, because we start September with Man United. And then, from September to probably November, you've got a lot of tough games, and one of those months, don't quote me, I'm sure we've got City and the North London derby. Whether they've got Harry Kane or not, the North London derby is a game that you don't want to lose. So as I was saying, you'd rather get the 3 points first, then dissect the performance. But on another day, maybe could have scored more, should have scored more, had to score more, and things of that ilk as well, people, if I'm very honest, and be a bit more cleaner defensively, because again, it's the games that we've won, and we won't be waffling about this. These are the games that you can see the concerns, not that I'm trying to find concerns or over positives that will cost us. Games we actually won last season told us everything about Arsenal, which probably led to our demise, on top of Saliba being injured towards the end of last year. I look at Brighton away, I look at Manchester United at home, I look at Aston Villa away, I look at Leicester kind of this time last season, first, second, third game into the season, where we're conceding dumb goals. And I don't think it's, I think we've got individual mistakes. I think we've got volatile players. I think we need to be a bit more street smart. And for the Forest goal, I think the whole team needs to take responsibility. They've broken from a corner. Credit to Benjamin White, Rice, Saka, and Trossard for trying to defend, but we're too open there. That shouldn't have happened. Maybe we could have made a tactical foul. And I'm not blaming White or Trossard because they bothered to get back, but they're both probably not tight enough to ultimately the goal scorer. And for Cooper, that's probably a positive for Nottingham Forest. He brought on 2 subs. They impacted the game. I think in the second half, while the majority of the game was all Arsenal and one-way traffic, and we dominated possession and proceedings, there was a stage where it became a bit open and there was a bit of nervy moments. But I would say, on top of what we need to improve, it's probably it's probably all we could ask for within reason. In the first game of the season, the tempo wasn't really quite in that game. A lot of our players had a lot of time and space on the ball. That game did give you early season / pre-season vibes. So I'm happy with it, really. You're not going to hear me complain at all, really. So I do think there's improvements. I do think we could play a lot more. I do think individual performances could be a lot better. Not saying it was bad, but I think everything Arteta did was justified, really. It worked. Again, he brought on Gabriel, but Gabriel didn't start. Partey, for whatever reason, played as a right back. Had this have gone left, people might say, why didn't Tomiyasu start in a natural position at right back? Why didn't you do some more conventional things? But I personally think fans are doing too much, because in the game, we had enough numbers back defensively. Rice was always there. Benjamin White was switched on. Him and Partey were taking it in turns. Odegaard was slightly deeper. Saliba was switched on, as was Timber before he obviously got subbed. And we knew in the game you could afford to probably do this luxury and gamble a bit and quote unquote play with probably one less defender, or be switched off a little bit in how we initially approach the game defensively, because we know they're going to sit back, respect us, look for us to break them down, etc., etc. So clearly, you just want to be better than you was yesterday, innit? So we need to be a lot better against Crystal Palace. Hopefully we are, people. Don't forget to smash the like button, subscribe, and all of that good stuff. Don't forget to obviously check out the rest of the content. But so far, so good. Fundamentally, we won the game. That's all that matters. Don't forget to comment and let me know your thoughts, people. And on that note, 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 people. And